So, what is real? Well, obviously all of this, but what exactly is it? So, you all woke up this morning. A sense of self kicked in, memories returned, and you became aware of an external world. This means that you're an entity existing in a physical reality. But this begs three questions. What exactly can we know about these things? And what is the true nature of reality? And what is an I, anyway? Okay, so let's start with the first question of knowledge. The more you know, the less you understand. I know that I know nothing. Now, to be fair, these quotes are pretty old. Surely today people are less uncertain. Well, those who feel certainty are stupid, and those with any imagination and understanding are filled with doubt. This is from the great philosopher and mathematician Bertrand Russell. While differing widely in the various little bits we know, in our infinite ignorance, we're all equal. Karl Popper was one of the most influential philosophers of science. And in the same vein, our comforting conviction that the world makes sense rests on a secure foundation. Our almost unlimited ability to ignore our ignorance. Daniel Kahneman is the father of behavioral economics and a Nobel laureate. Okay, so let's agree that from a philosophical point of view, the notion of certainty is a bit tricky. But we've got science, which is a knowledge generation machine, or not. Ever since the Pythagoreans, people have realized that the book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. Or, in the words of the great mathematician David Hilbert, mathematics is the foundation of all exact knowledge of natural phenomena. But this raises a very profound question. What is it that breathes fire into these equations and makes a universe for them to describe? So basically, two miracles confront us here. The existence of laws of nature and the human mind's capacity to divine them. You all know Stephen Hawking, and Eugene Wigner received the Nobel Prize for Physics in the 60s. Physicists have often been puzzled about the general nature of science because fundamentally, we do not know why our theories work so well. And the deeper an explanation is, the more new problems it creates. David Deutsch is one of the pioneers of quantum computing. But bewilderment does not stop there. There is no logical path to these laws. Only intuition can reach them. Perhaps it is culture, rather than nature, that dictates the content of scientific theories. Now, intuition and culture don't usually spring to mind when one thinks about science. And they're also not really ideas one would associate with these two great physicists. So, yes, science works, and it gives us this amazing gift of technology. But what science exactly is, and why it works, well, no one really knows. And surprisingly, Kurt Gödel and Gregory Chaitin have showed us that at the heart of mathematics lurks incompleteness and randomness. Okay, to summarize, so what we've been talking about is called epistemology. This is a branch of philosophy dealing with the nature of knowledge. But just because our knowledge of reality turns out to be a bit elusive, doesn't mean that reality itself should be suspect. Now, philosophers use the word ontology when dealing with the nature of reality. So let's move on to the second question. What about the nature of reality? Well, modern physics has conquered domains that display an ontology that cannot be coherently captured or understood by human reasoning. Ernst von Glattfelder was a distinguished philosopher who coined the term radical constructivism. This is the idea that all knowledge is subjective. But what is he exactly talking about here? Let's zoom into the fabric of reality. In other words, let's enter the quantum world. These are symbols from the book of nature. This equation describes the birth of quantum physics. No one saw this coming. Indeed, Max Planck introduced it in an act of despair. And it turns out that this new realm of reality is a truly bizarre place. Particles behave like waves and vice versa, depending on how you look at them. And there's an intrinsic level to how much information you can have. And everything is instantaneously connected to everything else. This is called entanglement, and you can use it to encrypt information. But things get worse. Some quantum experiments are truly mind-boggling. They appear to alter the past or break causality. Okay, so let's look at the universe. What do we find out there? Well, it turns out that of all the stuff there is, only 5% is ordinary matter. 26% is called dark matter, and again, no one really knows what it's made of. And 69% is dark energy, some mysterious force in the vacuum, making our universe expand faster and faster the bigger it gets. This was discovered in 1998 and was awarded with a Nobel Prize. And even things as innocuous as time can be very problematic under closer inspection. So much so that some physicists suspect it doesn't really exist. The passage of time is simply an illusion created by our brains. And what about emergence and self-organization? This is a map of the internet. It is as though there is this fundamental force in the universe driving it to ever higher levels of complexity and structure. Just think about ants. Where does this collective intelligence come from, which allows them to become this amazingly clever superorganism? And why can't we humans achieve this? Okay, so yes, reality is a truly bizarre place, but perhaps we can find a sanctuary of clarity and regularity within ourselves. Let's have a look at our brains and the way we perceive reality. Instead of reality being passively recorded by the mind, it is actively constructed by it. You're not perceiving what's out there, you're perceiving whatever your brain tells you. What we call normal perception does not really differ from hallucinations, except that the latter is not anchored by external input. Wow, but at least I'm in control of my mind, or not. The conscious mind is not at the center of action, but on a distant edge, hearing but whispers of the activity. The exact levels of dozens of neurotransmitters are critical for who you believe yourself to be. Beliefs about logic, economics, ethics, emotions, beauty, social interaction, love are all products of the biologically evolved hardwiring in the brain. These are the words of David Eagleman. He's a neuroscientist and author. And yes, things get worse. These two books are an embarrassment to any human being who believes in rationality. Countless experiments show how easily we can be manipulated without ever suspecting a thing. And don't fool yourself, we all fail equally at this. Other experiments have shown that the simple expectation of an experience will change how you perceive it. For instance, tasting wine you thought was expensive will result in neural activity in your pleasure center. Now, this does not happen for the same wine if you're told it is cheap. And the same is true for how you feel pain. And then we have the placebo and the nocebo effects, where your beliefs shape your reality. For instance, overdosing on sugar pills and nearly dying because you thought they were antidepressants. Then there is this thing called false awakening, where you dream that you wake up. To experience this can be quite unsettling. To wake up twice in a row is something that can shatter many of the intuitions you have about consciousness. That the vividness, the coherence, and the crispness of a conscious experience are evidence that you are really in touch with reality. Thomas Metzinger is a philosopher of the mind who's interested in neuroscience. And he asks, well, how do you really know that you actually woke up this morning? And then things can go terribly wrong in the brain. This book on psychopathology is a frightening 800 pages thick. Jill Bolte-Taylor studies brain anatomy. When she had a golf ball-sized blood clot in her left hemisphere due to stroke, this is what she experienced. My consciousness shifted away from normal perception of reality to some esoteric space where I'm witnessing myself having this experience. I can no longer define the boundaries of my body. I can't define where I begin and where I end. I felt at one with all the energy that was, and it was beautiful there. Now, these aren't really words I would expect to hear from someone whose left brain is being damaged, but rather from someone like this. This is Christian Rätsch. He's an anthropologist specialized in ethnopharmacology. His book, called The Encyclopedia of Psychoactive Plants, is 1,000 pages thick. And remember what Eagleman told us about hallucinations. They're just as real. This insight perhaps prompted the next quote. There are these extraordinary other types of universe. Aldous Huxley was talking about his experiences with LSD. So, what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? Well, if we are really honest, the answer is we don't know. So we're back to René Descartes. I think, therefore I exist. So the only thing I cannot deny is that I'm having a subjective experience now, and that is all. But perhaps we can do better. Perhaps if you're willing to give up some of our cherished beliefs about reality, we can start to understand more. And there's a glimmer on the horizon. Information is physical. All things physical are information theoretic. John Wheeler helped develop general relativity, and he gave us the word black hole. And Rolf Landauer made important contributions to information processing in the 60s. The universe is made not of chunks of stuff, but chunks of information, ones and zeros. Quantum physics requires us to abandon the distinction between information and reality. Seth Lloyd and Anton Zeilinger are currently pioneering the field of quantum information. They're helping us build quantum computers. A second theme is that we are in fact involved in creating reality. This is an idea that goes back to Immanuel Kant and can also be found in Buddhism. This is a participatory universe. Reality is something that comes into being through the very act of human cognition. Consciousness is all that exists. Space-time and matter never were fundamental denizens of the universe, but have always been among the humbler contents of consciousness. Richard Tarnas is a historian and author of the book called The Passion of the Western Mind, an epic journey looking at all the ideas that have shaped our modern worldview. And Donald Huffman is a cognitive scientist. So, to continue with this idea, our belief that there is a single universe shared by multiple observers is wrong. Instead, each observer has their own universe. This cosmic solipsism turns on all our common sense notions about the world. Then again, fundamental physics has a long history of disregarding our common sense notions. Amanda Gefter is a science journalist and author. And solipsism is the view that only one's own mind exists. Perhaps her idea can be summarized as follows. Objectivity is the illusion that observations are made without an observer. Heinz von Förster was a physicist and philosopher and one of the pioneers of cybernetics. So finally, a word of caution. Although all these last quotes come from very sober and keen thinkers, they could be wrong. In fact, everything I've been saying could be wrong. But if it is really true that we are, in fact, in charge of our own universe made of pure information, then it is essential for us to look for wisdom and truth within ourselves. Perhaps looking for reality outside of the mind is going the wrong way. Thank you.